Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and the guy who hates me so much, our co-host, KC Onyebuchi.
Make him say, nah. That's all I got.
Hey, man, I had you back on that one.
Feel ya. Why do I hate you, by the way? Except for all the myriad of reasons.
Okay, because I've gone back and listened to the last 10 episodes, and you say I hate you so much on every single episode. We find something for you to say I hate you so much.
You know what that makes me feel like? Hey, what? Ryan, I hate you so much.
Well, guess what, man?
What's that?
It was a weekend full of fights from promotions we don't cover.
How dare you do good radio and transition from there?
Look, I'm trying to raise the quality of the show, man.
All right, please continue after I've ruined your beautiful segue.
Yeah, man, my segue was clean, and then you just, boom, rocked it. Well, we had LFA on Access TV. You had Cage Warriors this weekend. And then Invicta FC. They all had events. But we don't cover those guys. So normally we would just go straight into finding the angles, but I actually got to watch the Invicta card today. So I think I want to give a shout out to those ladies who fought under the Phoenix logo. So let's look at the results in the official decision.
The official decision.
This is the official decision, a segment where we recap the fights that matter and discuss the ramifications of the action this weekend. Now, when Bellator does a card, typically on the main card they have 4 fights. Mm-hmm. When the UFC does a card, they typically have 5 fights. Invicta, 9 fights.
Makes sense.
Not covering them all. Not at all. Nope. There's 3 that I want to talk about. So
is Invicta basically like the minor leagues for UFC at this point?
A lot of the women in UFC, because remember, Invicta FC, Invicta Fighting Championship, is a strictly female promotion. So all of the fighters are female. They range from atom weight, which is 105 pounds, to featherweight, which is 145 pounds. So a lot of the females who do relatively well in Invicta, they tend to go over to the UFC. Invicta was on UFC Fight Pass, so there is a relationship between Invicta and the UFC. But I don't know that you'd call it a minor league or some type of training ground for the UFC.
Interesting.
All right, so we're going to run through a couple of these results. A lot of these fighters I've never seen before, but I want to shout them out on the Combat Sports Talk show. Yeah. Now, the first fight I want to talk about, 50 Cal Schwartz defeated Kay Hansen via TKO in round 2. Okay, this fight, you got 50 Cal. She is a former Marine woman. Who is fighting this 18-year-old Kay Hansen. Kay Hansen walks in with a shirt, and on the shirt it says Jeremiah 1 and 5. Now, I know you were a former, well, you're not a former.
You can't be a former pastor's kid.
Yeah, I was going to say you're a former pastor's kid, but you're not. You are a pastor's kid.
It doesn't go away. Yeah.
So I wanted to test your biblical knowledge. On her shirt it says Jeremiah 1 and 5. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I went to Bible memory camp and all that stuff. It's something about before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you, and something.
Dude!
Those God has a promise for you verses.
Dude, that is awesome. It is before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Unfortunately, that prophet to the nations got her face punched in.
Look, she was meant to be a prophet to the nations, not necessarily a victor. So she should have picked a different verse.
Oh my gosh!
Made you the head, not the tail.
Okay, so I know that people say they get red faced whenever they're embarrassed. This lady got red faced from all the blood that was pouring out of her scalp.
Oh, this is the one that made me think of the new Rory Red King over here.
Yes, that's the one.
Yes, that was so nasty. I support it though.
Okay, so let me tell you what happened. This entire fight took place. It was reminiscent of Randy Couture. So 50 Cal, has got Kay Hansen on the cage, and she's throwing lots of punches. This happens the whole fight, but in the second round, Kay Hansen gets a little bit lazy and doesn't pay attention to this left arm that 50 Cal has. And she comes up and throws this elbow right to her left eye. And that elbow cuts, I would say, probably a 2-inch gash over her left eye. And it's just waterfall.
Yuck.
Just a red waterfall. And so right after you see the cut, 50 Cal, belly to back, suplex, drops Kay on her head, and then goes in for the ground and pound finish. It was unbelievable. I mean, think the movie Carrie, but it's her blood, not pig's blood.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
Except for 50 Cal.
That's dope.
So that was crazy. Milana Dudaeva defeated Christina Marks via TKO strikes. This whole fight was two ladies standing about a foot away from each other, throwing punches that never landed.
That's the best.
Yeah, I mean, it was like two ladies shadow boxing. It was like a dance-off shadow boxing.
That's kind of a shame. Kind of puts a damper on the whole event. Like, aren't you guys supposed to be professional at this point?
Right. Yeah. And so it's funny because the announcers are talking and they're like, yeah, man, if any of these punches landed, this fight might be over. So they're throwing punches and they're trying to find distance, and then Dudaeva lands this punch that just sits her opponent down, Christina Marks, who was a late fight replacement for Mitsuyuki Ione, who ended up getting bumped up to the main event. So, like most of the fights were missed punches and then one overhand right, boom.
Rocked him.
That's right.
I love the overhand right. That's
overhand right.
Best shot
her
in
out.
the world.
Overhand right, it's the end of the night.
Dude, you should make that a shirt.
You know what? We will. So that was a good fight. Then in the main event, Verna Jandiroba defeated Mitsuyuki Ioe via split decision. This fight, I don't understand how it was a split decision. There was no way it was a split decision. This really should have been 5-0 or 4-1 and in favor of Verna, but it was a split decision. I don't know how. You never let it in the hands of the judges because then you get these crazy, crazy results. But Verna really ragdolled Mitsuuki around the ring, held her down, took her back. I mean, it was just a Brazilian jiu-jitsu, training class. Speaking of training classes, how's your Brazilian jiu-jitsu going?
It is the worst. There's absolutely no fun in it. So the thing with going to these jiu-jitsu classes where I'm with some of the UFC fighters, I'm with the Bellator fighters, and then even just like a blue belt today just kicked my butt nonstop. The thing is, when you're doing jiu-jitsu, like, the only way to learn is to get tapped. So I'm getting tapped over and over and over again. I finally tapped someone today, and I walked off the mat like I just won the heavyweight championship at UFC. Like, I was so done with getting beat constantly. My body's broken. I need a break.
So you know that's the saying, right? Is in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you win or you learn.
Oh, I learned that I don't love it. Good gosh.
All right. Well, shout out to the ladies of Invicta. Whether they won or whether they lost, they put it out there on the line in the cage. And, I was glad to be able to sit down and be able to watch them perform. So shout out to them. Hope to see them again at Invicta FC 29, which hopefully I think may come later this year. All right.
Yas Quaid.
That is the official decision. Let's get into a double dose of Finding the Angles.
Finding the Angles.
You are
This is Finding the Angles, our news and headline segment where we look at the topics making headlines in the MMA world. Because there were so many fights this weekend, there were a ton of headlines, there were Twitter beefs, all kinds of things going on. We're going to try to cover as much as we can on this show and hopefully give you a good idea of all the action that's kind of bubbling up as we go into, a big fight week in 2 weeks. So, first thing I want to do is shout out to Elias Theodorou. He is one of my favorite fighters. I got to actually take a picture with him in Ottawa whenever I was there a couple of years ago. He is the Spartan. He was Invicta's first ring boy.
I guess we call him ring girl, so it would be ring boy.
I
maintain is still the least necessary position in all of sports.
I didn't support you in this position until recently, and it's like, I'm starting to think about it, and I'm like, why do we have a ring person carrying a sign with the round number when there's a Jumbotron above the ring?
There's literally no reason for that to exist, unless you're fighting in a backyard and everyone's drunk.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. It's not like there's 10 or 11 or 12 rounds like a boxing match. You get 3 rounds or you get 5 rounds. That's it.
Now, I have lost track on the 5-round fights, though. I will say that. But then again, it's on the TV.
Yeah. This was funny because John Anik, who's an analyst and he's ringside commentator for the UFC, they were talking about Elias Theodorou as a ring boy and whether or not he stole the show at Invicta or contributed to the quality of the production. And I was like, you do realize that even when you watch the show, when you watch it on television, the only time they show the ring person is after they finish doing the job they're paid to do.
Yep.
So all you see them do is sit down at the ringside. That's all you ever see them do. Like, you don't even get to see them carry the sign.
Yeah, I don't think we miss much here. I mean, way to break the gender barrier, but I still feel like the whole thing is pointless.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. So, let us know. Let's do one of those things where you vote. Yeah, a poll. Gosh, what is wrong with me?
The weird part is I'm the one who's drinking right now.
So let's do a poll and let's see. Let's get a sense of our listeners. What do you think? Do you think that we could get rid of the ring people and that carry the cards? I'm trying to be inclusive.
I will change it though. Could you imagine having ring puppies, like golden retrievers, running around the ring? That'd be dope. I guess it'd be more fitting in this case to have pit bulls, but either way, that'd be dope.
Well, yeah, I guess, except for at least the ring ladies and guys are tall enough where you can actually see the card. Like, if it was a golden retriever, how are you going to see it?
Well, because there's a camera on it. That's the whole thing about this.
Okay, you didn't think
there's
this through.
No rational part of this because there's a camera watching the ring the whole time. You're good. Just let it be.
I'm gonna let this one go. Kamaru Usman, Mr. 30%.
My man. Down for Nigeria.
So he got into a Twitter beef with Darren Till this weekend.
It was serious. Got into one. He continued a long-standing Twitter beef. The man Kamaru has been out here trying to find a fight forever right now. I think there's some credence to this notion that people are afraid of him. He's called everyone out in his division, and nobody wants to step up. So of course he continued with Darren Till because that's a money fight for him.
Yeah. So let's just talk about Kamaru Usman real quick. So this is the guy that I got off his hype train. I got off the hype train because he was the one who said, I fought at 30%. Look at what I did to this Viking at 30%. Imagine me at 80%. And that just rubbed me the wrong way.
But it was true.
80%. Why not 100%? I would say imagine me at 100%. That's all.
Well, Darren Till said he'd be scared of him at 100%.
Well, and that's why we like Darren Till, because even if he is a loud talker, he's like, hey man, I give you props. I would be scared of you. You're a legit fighter. and what I thought was funny, Usman is still laying into him. He's like, hey, I gave you your props. What do you want me to do?
Well, it's not that he was laying into him. Like, the back and forth kind of was Usman calling out Darren Till because he knew he wasn't getting Colby Covington. And so Till kind of responds back with this notion of, well, I thought, yeah, you're right. You're a scary dude. Kind of being, I don't know, just kind of poking fun at Kamaru for that whole 30% comment. But then he says, I thought you called out Colby. What's the deal?
Yeah.
And so the back and forth really comes down to who are you calling out?
Yeah, and what I like is the fact that Kamaru Usman is like, hey, you're under witness protection. UFC wants to see you win, so I called out Kobe because everybody wants to see him get his face smashed.
It's true. I mean, Dana is notorious for protecting fighters and giving certain people a smooth pathway to victory.
Yeah. So this was a really good Twitter beef. I mean, it was funny going back and forth. I love the part where Usman's like, you're a cheap version of Conor.
Can't deny it.
This is the thing, is Kamaru Usman is trying to find a fight. There's basically two fights out there for him. Darren Till, who is basically the UK version of Conor McGregor, which we all know Conor is the greatest thing since sliced bread, according to the UFC. And a gentleman by the name of Santiago Ponzinibbio. And so we've talked about Santiago Ponzinibbio before, remember?
My man, he's had some interesting fights.
Yeah, Lorenz Larkin, his fight with Lorenz Larkin coined the phrase, protect the fighter.
Aw.
Protect the fighter.
Let them fight.
Because he got his face smashed in by Lorenz Larkin.
You just pretend that that's where Boom Rocked him came from, so he'll just get left hanging out there. It's horrible.
So there was another thing that Kamaru Usman wrote about these two options for him. And so, if you give me a second, I'll read through this just because I think it's interesting. He says, the UFC got itself in a situation here. This is a situation right now in the welterweight division. Darren Till and I are sitting at number 7 and number 8. So, they're right next to each other, and that's why he's calling out Darren Till. No one above us will take a fight with either him or I. Absolutely not. A couple of guys above us are actually terrified us, Colby Covington being the first one. He's definitely terrified because he only wants Tyron Woodley. He thinks, I already got up here, so I'm not going to risk getting beat up by any of these other guys. If I'm going to get beat up, I want to get paid for it by fighting Woodley. Nobody above us will fight us. Then, on top of it, the UFC are really trying to break new ground this year, Liverpool being the first of them, and Argentina being another one. Right, so we know that Darren Till has been slated as the headliner for Liverpool because this is a new city that they haven't gone to before.
Yep.
So for the first time, the UFC is going to Chile, and who is headlining that card? Santiago Ponzinibbio. If he wasn't headlining, he's a shoe-in guy you throw at Darren Till. It's a shoe-in. But they've already scheduled him to headline Chile, so now you've got Darren Till scheduled to headline Liverpool. So they're two hype trains that the UFC doesn't want to derail because they want to, later on this year, take Ponzinibbio to Argentina to a headliner card in his home country. So it would suck for him to get beat in Chile before you go to Argentina. Same with Darren Till. It would suck for him to go and break ground in his new hometown just to get beat. So basically, they're doing everything they can to keep these guys winning. But someone has to take the bullet because no one above us will fight us. So either you throw Santiago at me, or you throw Darren Till at me. I believe they see more value with Darren Till, so chances are they're going to try to throw Santiago at me if they can't find anybody else. So I'd say there's a negative 100% chance that I get Darren Till in Liverpool. One thing that I have to say about Mr. Kamaru Usman is his percentages are just kind of jacked in general. Why would you not just say a 0% chance? Instead of a negative 100% chance.
Because statistically, I'm
just saying. It's 0, right? Like negative 100%. No. I'm trying to rationalize that.
It's finite. So negative 100 means like something could happen and a bunch of people say yes, then all of a sudden it turns to a no.
That's still... No, but it's...
Nope, too late. It's rationalized.
Oh... Because
I do love that continued beef, though, because even Santiago acknowledging that the fight with Usman could happen, Santiago's taking shots at Darren Till. Like, it's just gross how it's just become incestuous in this weight division. Like, they really need to figure out some kind of ranking system that allows fighters to move up and down freely without having to call each other out on Twitter, because it's just getting ridiculous.
So, guess what?
Sup?
Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Kamaru Usman in Chile. That's the fight they scheduled. Like, I mean, he called it. He's like, listen, you've got two guys headlining two cards in new areas, and I'm the only guy that they could fight. Do they give me to Darren Till? Would they know that he feels that he's going to beat Darren Till, or they give him to Santiago Ponzinibbio, where he feels like he's going to beat that one? They give him to Santiago Ponzinibbio because it's the lesser of two evils.
Lower risk, yeah.
Lower risk. That is just interesting to me to see the background of how these fights come to be. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks to be Neil Magny, the odd man out.
Yeah, they thought they were going to give Neil Magny to Santiago Ponzinibbio, but unfortunately, you know, they say that Kamaru Usman is a problem. Hopefully he comes in there at 87%, just because I think that that's going to be what it takes to beat Santiago Ponzinibbio.
I'm saying 48.6%. He's got this.
All right. 48.6. Is that a negative? Or is that an absolute value of a negative 48.7%? Nothing. Just
yeah.
don't even address it. Let's just go on. Platinum Mike Perry self-destructs. Now, we talked about Platinum Mike Perry. This is a guy who was a bit of a loudmouth, won a fight, thought he was the bee's knees, and then in his next fight got smashed, got into a fight with Colby Covington on Twitter. Colby Covington called his girlfriend a horse face.
Horse face, yeah. And his girlfriend left him.
And then his girlfriend left Platinum Mike Perry.
Living the life of a country music song right now.
Yeah, like, he is ready. He is ready to sing about his lost woman, his dog, and his truck. So, you know, he is slowly decayed down to, you know, this guy who's wallowing in the slough of despond, in the swamp of sadness, if you will.
Wow, that was really good. The Slough of Despond.
That's right, man. That's Bunyan right there. That's some Vanity Fair is the name of that. Actually, it's Pilgrim's Progress by Bunyan.
I wasn't going to call you on that.
You aren't the only cultured one here. So Platinum Mike Perry says, "My life is," I'm going to use messed up. There you go. Always has been, but fighting usually treated me good. It's different, and I'm in a curious place. It's not just a pro fighter. I'm not just a pro fighter. I'm more than that. Just don't know what it is yet. It's okay not to know. The journey is most important. I'm going to let you read these from now on.
No, this is really messed up. Like, honestly, that's how it kind of reads.
Yeah, I mean, it reads it's very difficult to read. It's kind of stream of consciousness. So, yeah. I mean, he's lost his girlfriend. He lost his last fight. His big rival is making fun of him. And then, apparently, the fans got into it. And so then he raged against the fans. And he goes, "My last fight, I fought for my fans and the viewers. I don't give an F. Y'all want me to win so badly, and then you get in the gym and work for it. F y'all. I don't need your love and support. Never had any till now. Fakers, y'all don't know me. Hashtag, y'all don't know me. Hashtag, I'll be back by myself." Like,
each one of these fighters needs a public relations officer who says, "All right, so you're going through some stuff right now. I'm going to go ahead and take away your phone, and you shouldn't live your life in public right now. Just take a beat. Like, not everything has to be done in public."
Yeah.
This is like the Tyrese videos where he's crying, "What more can I do?" Like, come on, man. You can't live your life in public like that. Sometimes you got to step away and get your life together.
It's really sad because, you know, clearly he's going through something. I hope he gets his life back together. You know, maybe his girlfriend will come back. But no. But maybe he'll find a new girlfriend and he'll learn to treat her better.
Well, someone else who needs to think about moving on is Machida.
Yeah, you know, so he came onto the scene. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm not ready to retire. UFC wants me to retire." It's like, yeah, because you're losing.
Yeah, like, but you're not even a gatekeeper at this point. Like, are you even relevant? Like, it's nice to think of the legacy you had, but you got to walk away at some point.
Yeah, so his next fight is going to be the last fight of a great fighter, and that's Vitor Belfort. So Vitor Belfort versus Lyoto Machida, that's going to happen, and hopefully they both retire.
Yeah, this one, it doesn't hold a lot of meaning beyond just the end of an era.
Yeah.
Of these great fighters. So, I mean, that's the only way that this holds anything. If Machida continues to fight on, then no one actually, well, I say it this way. I personally don't care if Machida keeps fighting on, because I think he was great. His dragon style was good for a time, but the fight game has passed him. He's a great coach. He's a good motivator, but as far as fighting, it just doesn't do it for the fans anymore. Yeah,
well, and then he can finally, since he's not training anymore, hopefully when he retires, he can stop drinking his own urine. Let's go to the next one.
Fighter pay.
Joe Rogan says we need to get rid of win money. So I read this article, and I thought it was pretty interesting that Joe Rogan, who is kind of the famed color commentary person for the pay-per-view events, who I guess is going to be phasing out. He's got a big role at UFC 223 in April, but I think he's parting ways with the UFC soon. But he says that they should get rid of win money, and I think that there's a point there. So if you think about it, the way that fighters get paid, they write their contract, and they get paid in two lump sums. The first one is to show. So once they make weight and they show up and they step into the cage, they get a check. Then when they win, they get another check. And then whatever performance bonuses and things that get tacked on top of that. So what Rogan is saying is, listen, it's not fair that a fighter who goes through all this training and then loses doesn't get paid the rest of the money that he was, contractually obligated to get. So they should just be a purse. You show up, you fight, you get paid X amount of dollars, win or lose. What is your thoughts on that?
Oh, man. Yeah, I think it makes sense, because I can't really believe that the additional money becomes the incentive. Like, you're going to put it all out on the line no matter what. So is it truly an incentive? Like, I get an extra $40,000 if I win. So getting rid of it, I don't think hurts the sport at all.
Yeah, but the thing is, you could run into people who make financial decisions that, the person that used to drive me crazy was a, huge gentleman by the name of Bob Sapp. Do you remember Bob Sapp?
Nope.
So Bob Sapp was a former K1 fighter. I'd say he easily weighed 300 pounds, but he was not like overweight. He was just muscles on top of muscles. Like me.
Yeah.
But taller and bigger. And Bob Sapp had some epic fights, but over time, he began to demand more and more money, but he wouldn't take the financial risk. He would start fighting, and then he'd get hit a little too hard, and he'd just throw the fight. He'd just tap out. And so what ended up happening is he started throwing fights because it was financially beneficial. He was guaranteed the money. And so once things got too bad, he just let the fight end, and he's like, hey, I want to keep fighting, and so if it gets too bad, I'm not going to take too much damage. I'm just going to take the money. So while I would not accuse most fighters of, fighting that way, I do think that taking away the win money or the win purse financially incentivizes people to make a decision. Do I want to keep getting punched in this cut on my head or this broken nose, or can I just tap out and make the money? Because I'm not going to get any more benefit.
I'm kind of okay with that. Mostly because, first of all, most fighters aren't going to be thinking in terms of that. Like, you're in the moment, adrenaline's going, your pride's on the line, you don't want to lose. And especially if you're a contender, you got a shot at moving up. But the other part is, when we look at some of the lower side, like the prelim cards, these guys aren't fighting for much money. If you look at some of the fighters in other promotions, they're fighting for like $500 a night. You're putting yourself at risk for brain damage. Is it worth it for the pence, for the pittance that these guys are making? Like, No, I think that's a fair decision to make in the ring. Like, I'm going to have like $5,000 worth of medical expenses after this guy breaks my face. Do I want to keep getting punched? Is that not a fair thing to assess mid-fight? Like, I've already lost this. Why do I need to take additional damage?
I think from that perspective, I could definitely see the logic in that. But there's an ethos of a fighter that perhaps if you're making that financial decision, perhaps fighting is not the career for you.
I'll put it this way: come to one of my jiu-jitsu classes, and we'll give you additional money if you don't tap, which means that it's a Snap City type of moment. Like, so if you don't tap, you get additional money. Is it worth it? I think in the moment you start to think real quick, it's not worth it.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Volkan Ozdemir is fighting Shogun Rua. It's another one of these, these journeymen that are still in the UFC that haven't learned that it's time to leave. Shogun Rua, who's been around longer than Lyoto Machida, I think. They're fighting at UFC Santiago in Chile. Same card that Kamaru Usman and Santiago Ponzinibbio are fighting.
Not interested in this. Shogun has had an amazing career, but he's also had a lot of losses to up-and-comer guys. So this is no longer of interest to me because Shogun's hit or miss, and even if he wins, it's not going to do anything for the rankings.
Can I do my flash fight pick now, or do I have to wait until we actually cover this card?
Do it!
All right, so I got Volkan Ozdemir by bloody disaster.
I will concur with this. I just don't see Shogun showing up.
Yeah, I just don't see. I mean, Volkan Ozdemir is kind of the new blood in that weight class. I think he, up until he got out wrestled by Daniel Cormier, I think he was holding his own in the striking.
Yep.
I don't see Shogun Rua, at his advanced age in this sport. I don't see him doing the type of damage he needs to do to Volkan Ozdemir. I think it's a quick night. Robert Whittaker warns Yoel Romero about missing weight. Now remember, Yoel Romero, he says this is the first time he's ever missed weight. I haven't tracked it, but if it is this fear on Robert Whittaker's part? Is this gamesmanship? What is this?
It's just selling a fight. I mean, Yoel Romero honestly had nothing on the line weight-wise for his last fight, so of course he didn't make weight. Like, there's no point in making weight. He had too much to lose on a short-nosed fight. This Whittaker's not going to walk away from this fight. There's no way Dana allows that to happen. He's not John Jones 10 years ago, or that's way too far, but a couple of years ago. So I think it's all talk. There's no way that actually happens.
Okay, all right. I agree with you, even though I do think it's interesting that he's saying that if Yoel Romero doesn't make weight, he's not going to fight. That he's just going to...
He can't not fight. He can't just be like, well, this card's trash because Yoel missed it by 2 pounds. I mean, you have nothing to lose if you're fighting a guy who can't win the belt.
Yeah, well, if you lose, the belt goes vacant is what happens.
Yeah.
So when there's a championship fight and the competitor fails to make weight and the champion loses, then the belt goes vacant. Similarly, if the champion fails to make weight and wins, the belt still goes vacant.
Well, there you have it.
So, TJ, remember we were talking about this super fight? Demetrius Johnson, my number one dude, versus TJ Dillashaw, who's the champion at 135. And in the bantamweight, they were trying to do a super fight. They finally said, this fight is not happening.
Thank goodness. I'm so over these super fights.
I am sick of super
fights.
Especially when
the super fight is with these tiny men. Like, that's not even a super fight. They should come up with another superlative for that. No, you're just gonna leave me hanging on that.
No, I'm. You know what? I'm appalled that you're talking about the size of these fighters, but at the same time, it's funny because
I'm like, come on.
So I did
super fight.
I did laugh. That was funny.
So here's the thing, though. I've always been in the camp of TJ has to defend his belt before you call someone else out. Like, that's just champion 101. Defend your belt.
Yeah, I think that Demetrius Johnson is eligible for a super fight because he's basically cleaned out his division.
Yeah.
There's no competitor out there. Maybe there's one that he hasn't at least beaten once.
Yeah.
So, he's eligible for a super fight. But TJ Dillashaw just won the belt. He hasn't defended.
Barely. Yeah.
So, I mean, let's not make another Conor McGregor, folks. We're going to get to that, by the way.
The UFC needs that.
They do need someone. So, they got Darren Till. Let's circle back to Darren Till because guess who he called out? Remember we said that he called out Stephen Thompson? It's going to happen. Everyone's saying that it's close to being reality. Darren Till versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. We talked about him calling him out last week. This week, it looks like it's going to happen.
Yes, I support it.
Amanda Nunes versus Chris Cyborg. We said that one was not going to happen yet. Chris Cyborg said that if it's going to happen, it has to happen in July or else it's not happening.
I like that she wants to push the pace, but I just hope the fight doesn't happen. I don't see any point in it happening.
Nunes says it's not fair to her because she's got to fight in, May.
Yep.
And so she's fighting in May. There's no way to turn around that quickly unless she demolishes Raquel Pennington, which I think it's possible. But she has to fight Raquel Pennington, take no damage, and then go right back into a fight camp to get ready for July to fight Chris Cyborg. So my question for you, is this fear on behalf of Chris Cyborg? Because I won't call it fear, because what is the most dangerous woman in the world? Chris Cyborg doesn't want to fight Amanda Nunes. That's not something that she wants. She's already said that she doesn't want to fight her. So are you think that she's creating these obstacles so she doesn't have to fight Amanda Nunes? Or do you think that this is all financially motivated, July being International Fight Week and one of the biggest cards of the year?
It's all finances. Like, Chris Cyborg deserves a big card, and that would be the one that gets her paid if anything was going to happen, because outside of getting Conor McGregor to fight literally anyone, there's no huge money tickets out there, so Fight Week is where it would have been out for Cyborg. So get her someone that she can fight on that card, and it makes sense.
All right. Hey, RDA, Rafael dos Anjos. Rafael. If you're speaking in Portuguese, it's a H sound for the R. So Rafael. Rafael dos Anjos versus Colby Covington in Brazil for the interim welterweight title. That's ridiculous.
On so many levels. Like, first of all, Colby, I really feel like he's talked his way into a championship opportunity, and that is absolute garbage in the way that he's done that. And the fact that it's back in Brazil is the worst possible marketing scenario. Like, best case scenario, Colby wins and the UFC immediately mutes everything and turns off the cameras.
Yeah.
Like, that is the only way that they walk out of there with a win.
I disagree with you.
What?
This is the best marketing you could ever have. Like, you clearly don't have a career in marketing. You're a sales guy.
Come on now. I do work in marketing. No, so I get it. Like, yeah, you're going to sell a bunch of tickets.
They are going to play that Brazil comment that he made.
Immediately.
That's all they're going to do is play the Brazil, you stink. And, your country sucks, all that kind of stuff. They are going to keep playing that over and over and over again. Rafael dos Anjos is Brazilian. They're fighting in Brazil for an interim title that shouldn't exist.
Nope.
So Colby Covington has two options. One, he loses in Brazil in front of Brazilians to a Brazilian.
I would love to see the crowd reaction to that.
Which
you talk about getting stuff thrown at you.
People will lose their mind. Or, worst case scenario, but best case for the UFC, Colby Covington beats Rafael dos Anjos in Brazil and takes the belt, setting up a fight against Tyron Woodley. I mean, think about that for a moment. There will be people crying. Like, remember when Brazil got beat 7-0 by Germany in the World Cup?
Yeah.
This is like that. If Colby Covington beats Rafael dos Anjos, former champion, in Brazil for a title, after he said what he said, there will be people crying. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
You went biblical on it. I like it.
What? But the fact is that this whole interim title thing is BS. Like, the UFC is now giving out belts, interim belts, like candy. Did I say this last
It's like candy.
Like candy on Thanksgiving.
Wait, is that a thing?
It is not a thing, but remember last time I misspoke. I meant candy on Halloween, but I was a month late.
Candy on Thanksgiving, like, I'm not gonna lie to you. My family had different traditions than most, but I really feel we missed the boat on that one.
Well, it's kind of funny. Maybe that becomes a thing. It's like candy on Thanksgiving. But Tyron Woodley thinks that this is messed up because he is out. He is currently healing from from surgery on his shoulder, but he's almost done with the treatments. He said he could be ready by July. So having a fight, well, I mean, this fight's not going to be until like June. Why not wait till July?
Yeah, it's crazy because we didn't wait. I mean, how long did it take for them to finally set up an interim belt for Connor's belt?
Oh, a long time.
It still technically hasn't happened. Why on earth would they do this? I think this comes down to bad blood between Woodley and UFC management.
Yeah, I don't know. But what I think it comes down to, which is the next thing, is interim belts make good promotional tactics. And this I got from a Twitter user named Front Row Brian, who was commenting on the fact that every time they put a belt on the poster, the pay-per-views sell more. So when you think about it, you could have Rafael dos Anjos fight Colby Covington, or you could have them fight for a belt. Which one's going to sell more?
Yeah, the belt sells more, but
don't think about whether or not it's ethical or right or even makes sense. The fact is, financially, the UFC does better on their pay-per-views whenever they have a belt that's on the line. So even if the fighter, the champion, is only going to be out for one more month where you could actually schedule a fight with him and actually have it for the belt, it makes more sense to have an interim title because that's a fight for a belt, and then a unification fight later, with the fight that you were going to schedule anyway. So you think about it, they did that for Georges St. Pierre and Michael Bisping, where Michael Bisping had the belt. Instead of having Michael Bisping unify the belt with Robert Whittaker, they had Georges St. Pierre fight Michael Bisping, because I personally felt the UFC thought that Bisping was going to win that fight, which he didn't, because guess what? That's next on the list.
Yeah.
But let me just finish this thought. Georges St. Pierre has the belt or gets the belt. The next fight has to be a unification belt. So you're doubling up. You're getting 2 title shots for the price of 1.
Twofer. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is something that Front Row Brian on Twitter actually talked about and said that that's in their pitch decks, that they call it like doubling up or something like that. And it's actually a marketing strategy for the UFC that's effective.
Like, I get it, but on some level, like, even as a fan, like, you're kind of being cheated when they give you exactly what you want. Like, these super fights and these crazy matchups that happen, it's like, oh, this is awesome. But realistically, that this is all marketing and it's not the best possible fight that could happen.
So, I'm going to take an aside here. And I started a 3-blog series talking about super fights and how super fights and matchmaking have ruined kind of the UFC, or specifically super fights have ruined matchmaking in the UFC. So, in the first blog, I talk about kind of the history of how we got here, how Conor McGregor, how Georges St. Pierre, and ultimately how Daniel Cormier are going to continue to ruin matchmaking in the UFC with these ridiculous super fights that don't make sense. And then in the second blog, I talk about how do we fix it? How do we revamp the ladder to eliminate these problems with matchmaking and make a more robust process where people actually know where they stand and what they have to do to get a title shot, and not just this willy-nilly, process that currently exists in the UFC.
Yeah,
Finally,
it allows for leapfrogging and all this other mess.
Yeah. That you won't have to sit there and Twitter war against somebody to get a fight.
Exactly.
And then finally, The last one will be just kind of an analysis of what are the implications on today if we had such a ladder process implemented in the UFC. So I think it's pretty good. The first one's already out on Combat Sports Talk, so please do check that one out.
Sweet.
All right, Michael Bisping says he suffered severe rib cartilage tear before the GSP fight.
Did he?
Did he?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking at him kind of cockeyed when I read that. I'm like, come on, Michael Bisping, really a severe rib cartilage tear? Really? Because the last time I saw somebody have a rib cartilage tear, they stopped the fight. Like, that was Anthony Pettis versus Dustin Poirier. That actually was on MMA, the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. And he talked about it. Like, he was out for 4 to 6 weeks with this cartilage tear. I looked online, and they were saying that the average time to heal up a cartilage tear of such a injury is 6 to 12 weeks. So my question is, how in the heck did Michael Bisping even fight with an injury that bad? Like, his ribs weren't wrapped or anything.
You underestimate the count. The man is a UK treasure. He can do anything.
See, I feel like you're pushing my buttons like Czech Congo.
No, but seriously.
Is this the new Czech Congo?
No, because Bisping really does, he's got such a passion for the sport. There's no way he's going to let something like that sideline him against such an epic fight. Like, of course, you suck it up. You talk about Heart of the Warrior. There it is.
Yeah, so while they don't go so far as to say that that's why he lost.
Wait, real quick, because you didn't fight me on that. I didn't believe a single thing I just said.
Well, he's one of the winning.
You just let that go in a way that made me feel uncomfortable. Like, hold on.
I accepted it because he is one of the most winningest fighters in the UFC. He's fought more times and won more fights than, just about anyone in the UFC. So, yeah. You have to give him props. But let's just be honest. Michael Bisping had a detached retina. He's got limited vision in his right eye. And so the reason why he lost was not because he suffered some torn cartilage in his ribs. It's because he can't see that left hook coming. Why? Because he got rocked against Georges St-Pierre, and then 3 weeks later, he gets knocked out against Kelvin Gastelum in China. My thing is that if this was a severe rib cartilage tear, you are not, even if you get in the ring with Georges St-Pierre, you don't go and fight someone else 3 weeks later. You just don't do it.
Well, I don't know how wow, my voice cracked. I don't know how the athletic commissions would allow that, because an eye test is part of it, and so is the full physical. So if there really was an issue, it would have been caught. There's no way he's been allowed to fight.
He can see out of the eye, but there is probably limited vision. I mean, it is no coincidence that Georges St-Pierre rocked him with a left hook, and then Kelvin Gastelum dang near turned him into an owl by hitting him so hard his chin touched his shoulder with a left hook. And I guarantee you the next person who fights Michael Bisping will be throwing that left hook because he just can't see it coming.
Yep.
Drew Chapman. You know that name?
Not even a little bit. Should I pretend? Oh, yeah. Didn't we go to high school together?
Drew Chapman. You know what he did? This weekend, he did a backflip off of an unconscious opponent.
You should have led with that. No one knows his name. He's just the backflip guy. Oh, no, the front flip. I don't know. It's backflip. Wait, that's not even a thing.
It's a backflip.
I'll let you go with that. Wait, backflip. It's
a backflip.
Explain yourself.
Okay, so earlier today, Casey and I are talking through the show. We're trying to get the show ready for you guys. And we're going through the run sheet. We've got a run sheet and making sure that we get everything. And we're talking about this fighter. Everyone's seen it. This guy, Drew Chapman, he's fighting. He throws a kick. His opponent catches his kick and then trips him. As they're falling to the ground, Chapman lifts his knee up, and the guy, his opponent, falls on his knee, knocking himself out. So the ref stops the fight. Drew Chapman jumps up, steps on the guy's back, does a flip, and lands on his opponent. Instantly,
he did not land on his opponent.
He did land on him. His back landed on his opponent. He landed with his back on his opponent. So he instantly goes from winning the fight by knockout due to face to the knee, but not knee to the face to the knee.
No, I mean I'm gonna give Chapman some props. Like, he did the proper thing where he went to the ground, he created his frame, and he brought his knee up. Like, that's proper ground defense.
Right. But he still won because the other guy slammed his face into Chapman's knee. So he won the fight, but after he does his flip,
his traditional celebratory flip,
typically not off of the back of his opponent.
Fair.
He gets disqualified. So remember earlier you were saying that a person shouldn't lose a fight when they get disqualified?
Yeah.
Yeah, he lost that fight because he got disqualified.
Yeah, I still think he won. There should just be an asterisk.
So here's the reason why it's a backflip. Because I was sitting there typing last night trying to get this all into the run sheet, and instead of it being it's a forward flip where he did, I actually typed back floop. I misspelled it. So it says backflip. So I'm sitting here and KC is making fun of me like, dude, it was not even a backflip. It was a backflip. It was a frontwards flip. I was like, no. He was standing on his opponent's back. And so when you do a frontwards flip when you're standing on your opponent's back, it's called a backflip.
Just the most difficult man to argue with, because you'll come up with the most messed up scenario ever to try to make yourself right. And the worst part is, like, I went through my time as a gymnast. I was like, wait, is that a thing? Nope. Like, I almost texted someone on this. Like, hold on. Like, did I just not know this?
It's a backflip. So yeah, I'm sticking with it. It's called a backflip.
All right. Well, in this case, I still think that. I mean, congrats. Like, you won your first fight. I know that there have been some people who say that he should never be allowed to fight professional again. But come on, we've all made mistakes in the moment of just pure triumph. So
yeah,
I say you give him a pass. You slap him on the hand. Like, he didn't win his show money. He lost all $500 of his win prize. And we move on and move to
those people who are going so far as to say that he needs to be banned from the MMA, no one was hurt. Yes, it was an embarrassing thing, and what I think is Drew Chapman absolutely showed remorse and embarrassment for his behavior later. Yep. So I do think this is a learning experience. I mean, this is like when we went to UFC 183 and saw our hometown hero Ryan Babyface Benoit fight Sergio Pettis.
Yep.
Pettis was winning the whole fight until, Benoit had nothing left to lose in the third round, ends up rocking Pettis, knocks him out, and as he's getting up when the ref stops the fight, he kicks Pettis in the butt. Technically, he should have been disqualified because he struck his opponent after the fight was called.
Yep.
Yeah, we booed him. I mean, even
what's all this we talk? I cheered.
Okay, because you were just. But everybody in the crowd was upset. They felt like it was the wrong thing, but he learned his lesson, and he acknowledged that he was wrong, and we moved on. This is really no different. It's just that this one went viral. Yeah. And so people have an opinion on it. So Drew Chapman, I feel like you learned from your lesson as far as I'm concerned, and perhaps for KC, just don't do it next time.
No, I'll do it next time. It'll make for good TV.
MMA gym owner fights Wing Chun master. I love this story.
No, I refuse to watch it because we all know what was going to happen there.
So there is a guy, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't know the proper tones to say his name properly, so we're going to call him the Chinese MMA gym owner. So there's a Chinese MMA gym owner who is trying to put on an exhibition of his mixed martial arts versus the traditional forms of Kung Fu in China. Now, the Kung Fu establishment in China is something that has a long and lasting tradition, and the Chinese government, in some degree, in some cases, really helps to support this notion of this mystical, history of Kung Fu. Well, you've got this guy, the Chinese MMA gym owner, who is going around challenging these great grandmasters of these traditional martial arts to test his MMA versus their traditional kung fu. He did his first one against a Tai Chi master, and the ground and pound started, and the ref did not get there fast enough. It was pretty brutal.
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, it's just MMA is completely different from some of these traditional arts, which I believe should absolutely have their place and should be respected. But some of these matchups just aren't meant to be.
Yeah, and so, you know, what's interesting is we watch all these kung fu movies, and you know, it's always set in, you know, very poor, you know, in very poor ancient China or whatever, and you have these guys going around wanting to test their kung fu versus other kung fu. So there is at least a history of people fighting in these exhibitions. I mean, Bruce Lee, you know, kind of the most famous martial artist, right? He fought in these exhibitions. So this is something that I think is you know, worth at least investigating. How does MMA stand up against these traditional styles? But I think that because MMA incorporates a lot of Western boxing, Western wrestling, it incorporates Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, you get the Muay Thai from Thailand, you know, you get all of these different fighting styles together, and you take out the things that are, you know, that aren't practical, and you only keep what's effective. What you get is a superior modern fighting system, which is what Bruce Lee commented on 40, 50 years ago. He said, you know, when he was creating Jeet Kune Do, which was his specific style of martial arts, he wanted to revamp the traditional fighting systems because there was too much focus on theory and forms and not enough on practical application.
Yeah.
MMA is the realization of Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do, and I think that as we watch this Wing Chun master, which is what the martial art that Bruce Lee practiced, it doesn't hold up. The MMA fighter just destroyed the Wing Chun master. You should watch it.
I think I'll check it out. I mean, it's reminiscent of kind of like the early days of the UFC, and even with the BJJ coming to the US. I mean, where it was a very common practice for a long time for fighters to go into another gym and challenge their best student. Like, so it's not an unheard of practice. I just, in this case, knew exactly what the outcome was going to be. But I'll check it out.
All right, let's get to the last thing. Conor McGregor, 479 days.
I feel like that's all that needs to be said. That guy, I refuse to give him any more press.
And counting. No title defense. Come on, Conor.
None.
No title defense.
Do better.
Do better. Come on, Conor. Let's see you fight. All right. Follow us on social media. On Twitter, I'm at CST Ryan.
And I am at CST_KC.
You can check out the website at combatsportstalk.com. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Yas.
Yas. All right, let's do it. How about
boom, chicka, chicka, boom.
Boom, chicka, chicka, boom.
Yeah,
all right.
I played on that song, by the way, in case our listeners are wondering.
What?
I played on that song. Our intro and outro.
Oh yeah. So let's hear it. You ready? You want to lead it in? What's it called?
Yeah.
What's the name of the song anyway?
Oh, dude, now I'm blanking. It's been forever. Who knows? Okay. It's by Scott Dean Country.
All right, here we go. Our theme music is composed by Scott McCurry at scottdeancountry.com. KC Onyebuchi produced our lead-ins. I want to thank you for joining us for another edition of Combat Sports Talk. For KC Onyebuchi, I'm Ryan Smith, reminding you to keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and throw balls. Wait. So what did you actually play? The song is
Arizona.
It's called Arizona?
Yeah. I knew you were going to call me out, so I was prepared. The song is Arizona.
So what did you actually play?
So live, when we play that song live, I play cello on that. It gets... leave me alone.
You can't hear a dang... You can't hear no cello on that.
It's because it's the studio version. Live, it is dope. It's a 10-piece band, and I play cello. Get at me, son. I play cello, and I can fight, so come at me.